I am extremely excited for this game. Full stop. Hey everyone, Jeremy here. Today I'm going to talk about the huge announcement that KOTOR Remake is real. The Knights of the Old Republic Remake is real. It'd been rumored for a while, and we finally have our announcement. But this does raise questions. Will this be canon? And I think there isn't just a black or white answer to this. There's no right or wrong. There's no, one column A, column B. This is a little bit more nuanced than that. And I just wanted to talk about it here and get all of your opinions as well as share my own. Now remember to hit like and subscribe to see more content like this. But now let's just jump right into it. When KOTOR was revealed, when that trailer started, I lost my ever-loving mind. I love KOTOR. Now, I'm not the most versed person on Revan, but I did love those games. I played them backwards and forwards. I played them multiple times. You had to see all the alternate endings. You had to see the alternate dialogues. I am that type of person that I love RPGs where I get to see that type of thing. And KOTOR was the first one. This was BioWare, by the way. This was their baby, their original baby. Before Mass Effect, they were the guys that broke this ground, that made narratives, that truly had these massive epic scales with alternate endings, as well as so many branching paths throughout the story. That is also the thing that got BioWare in trouble with the Mass Effect franchise, because when you have a story that vast, you run into story paths that have to end. And if you have a story path that goes on an epic scale like that, sometimes you funnel those items into one path. I'm bringing this up because I have a feeling this may be where KOTOR has to go if we want it to be canon. I can already hear people screaming at me now, but let me explain what I'm thinking here and the problems that are involved if it does become canon. It's the inherent problem with RPGs in general being canon, like I mentioned with Mass Effect. If you want to have a sequel to a game, which they are running into right now, you have to have a canon ending. You have to have an ending that matches the overall canon of the story, because your branching paths can't all go into an overall narrative that is taking place later. Now, there are a few stances on ways you can make something like this canon, like where I was mentioning this feeding into the overall narrative. So you could say the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, the prequels, all of them take place so far removed. I mean, we're talking like 1,000 years, maybe more later, that you know what? They just don't know what happened. The records from back then, they're spotty. It's all a little bit different, let's say. Now that's a lot, considering most of us know what the dark side ending is to KOTOR, so that'd be a little bit weird for them not to remember something like that. But okay, for the sake of argument, let's say that's what they go with. Problem is, if they ever set a property after KOTOR, if you ever set something after, and I'm not talking about Knights of the Old Republic 2, like doing a sequel to that. I'm talking like if you set something 100 years later, 200 years later, they have to directly reference the events of KOTOR. There isn't much way around that. That has to have existed. Those references are gonna be there. So that would break the narrative. You would have to have something canon in place for a story taking place later. So if not, then Star Wars just can't use, like, I think it's actually 5,000, isn't it? Somebody leave that in the comments. I'm blanking on how much time there is between KOTOR and the original trilogy and the prequels. I want to say it's like 5,000 years, isn't it? So you've got an entire, like, few millennia you can't use because of one game. You can't do that. You're taking away so much real estate in Star Wars. You can't go down that path. You just can't. I mean, I guess technically you could, but it wouldn't be a very good narrative decision or a very good business decision. And we all know which one wins out when money is involved. Now, the other possibility to keep it canon, to make it so it does stay in canon, they fundamentally change the story. They just fundamentally change the story and your choices. They make it more linear. They make it more streamlined. They they're already going to have to make changes to the game. If it's going into canon, there are certain changes that would have to be made anyway, just to make sure it fit into the Star Wars universe, the established canon that we have. Because back when KOTOR was made, keep in mind, the prequels were still babies. The prequels had just come out when KOTOR did. So we're talking a while ago at this point. Star Wars has evolved massively. There's so much new canon and so much to the canon that we don't want it to get broken. So they're going to have to make adjustments. And I don't mean huge sweeping changes. I don't think they might just have to rename a few things, remove and change some things around, but nothing, I don't think anything on a fundamental level would have to be changed. I'm talking like, okay, we have to use the pikes a little bit differently. You know, that we now know more about the pikes. We now know more about the planets we're going to. We now know more about Yoda's species. Well, actually we know less, but his species does appear in the game. So would they remove that? Would they change that? Would it become canon now that there's always been one of his kind on the council? You know, there are things like that that could be awesome because of this. Keep that in mind. These changes I'm talking about aren't bad necessarily. I almost look at them as like tweaks. That said, they could do the same to the story. They could very much do the same thing to the story, tweak it here and there, change it slightly until it all funnels into one canon storyline. Maybe you don't have a choice at the end. Maybe at the end, it goes the one path they need it to go into. This also goes into my other idea that, well, they could do exactly what I just said, but yeah, give us the multiple endings, but only one of them is really canon. And I think that's really where they would have to go. They would have to go with the idea that one ending is only canon. If you have more than one ending, fine. You know, you can have 5 different endings. You know, heck, I'm all for it. But you still have to pick one that's canon so that all stories that come after can follow it. And there are already people out there going, but Mass Effect 2, but Mass Effect 3, you had multiple endings for those games and they pulled it off. Yes, you could do that for the other games. But I'm talking about the overall narrative of the KOTOR series. Eventually you're going to have a canon ending, so any TV shows, any movies, any comics, anything that comes after that, it's got to be able to tie in to what is actually established there. And I think that means we have to have a canon ending. I don't see any other way around that. Again, you can't just sit there and go hand wave away that nobody remembers what happened back then. No, if there's a giant war that occurs back then, people are going to remember that. So I think you have to have a canon ending. Otherwise, you risk destabilizing the entirety of Star Wars canon, or for at least anything you would want to happen in the Old Republic era, which personally, I want to see more in the Old Republic era. And the only way I think we can do that is to have a canon ending so that they can reference it, so that we don't have to worry about them constantly sidestepping this war and these things that happen. No, we just say they happened and let's move on. Let us have our story that we know was our Revan story, that was our KOTOR, but then let us also have continuing stories outside of that, you know what, they're based off of that other ending. You know, that other ending we'll probably all get anyway, because we'll play through the game multiple times just to see the other endings. And I say all this, and there is still the distinct possibility this just won't be canon. And I feel like, knowing Lucasfilm, the way they have treated things in the past, they've been pretty loosey-goosey on how they treat canon, to be honest. I mean, look at the books. We've already had the Ahsoka book. A lot of that was retconned. We've had things in, the Rogue One novelization. I always blank on the name of it. Or not the novelization, but the book that takes place right before Rogue One. There are things inside of that kind of got retconned. Even inside Rogue One, they kind of retconned-ish certain things that you're looking at going, yeah, that doesn't really line up. I think that is all just ancillary to them. I don't think they truly treat that with the reverence they do the TV side and the film side. And I think video games fall right there with them. I think video games to them are just not as important, and their stories don't matter as much. Again, That's just my opinion, but that's just from what I've seen so far. Granted, I was thrilled when Operation Cinder got mentioned in Mando, so they could prove me wrong on this front. Ha! Front! Battlefront. But all that's leading me to say I could see them easily just decide that, we're going to remake KOTOR, but it's still not going to be canon. We're just going to have it in its own little pocket universe where you get to play as Revan and you can have sequels to it, but it's all stuff taking place only in its little pocket story that has no effect on the overall canon of the Star Wars universe. We're never going to reference it, and it just stays here. Now, I say that, and I know technically he's a part of canon now because of Rise of Skywalker. However, they could also just easily say, yeah, but it's still a different Revan. Not a fun version of that, but I mean, it's possible. Counterpoint to my argument. And that's why this is a discussion, because everything I'm saying here, I can see an argument against. Counterpoint to what I just said is that Disney originally said, and Lucasfilm, I should say, Lucasfilm originally said, when the new canon was starting, everything would be a part of canon. Everything. The comics, the books, the video games, the TV series, the movies, all of it was a part of one big canon. And that's why they got rid of Legends, or well, I shouldn't say got rid of, turned everything into Legends that, wasn't the films, basically, or the Clone Wars. They did that because they wanted to be able to take everything they are making now, or back 10 years ago now, and make it all canon, make it all fit into the overall narrative of Star Wars. If that's the case, if they are still holding true to that, this really could just mean it falls under that umbrella, exactly what they said. No, we're making it, we're publishing it, that means it's canon. It's also very easy to come in and have them say, oh, well, not this one, or we changed our mind. Neither of those would be surprising to me. But I would really love it if they stuck to their guns and said, no, we're putting this out, it's canon. This is what we meant, this is what we intended from the beginning, that anything we put out will remain canon. If that's the case, awesome. We get Revan fully in canon. They're just going to run into the issues that I've been talking about here. And if we're going to go down, what do I think right now? And keep in mind, this is right after the reveal. This is right after we just got this reveal. This is a day or two later. So what do I think right now? I tend to think it won't be canon. I just have a distrust of how Lucasfilm treats these things we love. I am just a little afraid that whatever comes from them, especially in video game form, I don't know that I trust them that it will stay canon. I mean, they may even say, certain things they even say, oh, it's canon, and then I feel like it's not. So I just have this distrust that they would put this out as canon. I hope so. I want them to put this out as canon. I want them to put it out as canon. And what I want versus what I think are two different things. What I think, I really don't trust them. I just don't. And that's sad. But I don't trust them to not let us down. And I think they will make this not canon. That's where I'm at with that. What I hope is they go the multiple endings, but one will be canon so we can do other Old Republic stories based off of it. That's what I want, to be honest. I mean, let me have my multiple endings. But if you want to make more stories after, and I want you to make more stories after, and you need an ending, pick one that's canon and we'll keep going. That is what I want. Truly what I want. And I hope to see it. I really do. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. I mean, I am absolutely certain there is something I haven't thought of. And if you have a theory, if you have a thought on how they could make this canon or why it wouldn't be canon, leave it below. I really want to know. I treat this like a discussion. Like these are my ideas right now after the reveal and really just thinking about it for a day or two, wondering, okay, how can this fit into canon? Will it fit into canon? And do I trust Lucasfilm to make it canon? Those are the thoughts that were going through my head, and I thought I'd make a video about it so we could all talk about it. So yeah, leave your comments below on what you think will happen with this. And maybe you have an idea of how they could carry this all forward. I don't know. Leave those thoughts below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe to see more content like this, as well as share this with friends if you think they might enjoy it. All right. And before I go, as always, please take care of yourselves and please take care of each other. Thank you for watching.